Now, Sleepy Joe would say the unemployment rate in the great state of Ohio. No, you're in South Carolina. I did that like 7 times. If I did that once, it would be the end of the road, right? And they say the noise causes cancer. You told me that one, okay?
And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning?
I rode here in a horse and buggy. No. That wasn't a joke.
On the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
Right there. Right there. That was the moment.
God, if I were...
Don't say if I were president. It's the VP bear trap.
Okay, I won't say it. I'll just think it.
And the age issue is off the table.
For our party.
What? I mean...
You okay?
Yeah, tell him yeah.
All good. All good.
He fell down. He did? He fell down.
A string of
Of course, we need constructive dialogue, but they've now had 30 years of blah, 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 and where has that led us? If this is what they consider to be climate action, then we don't want it.
According to this 2023 Pew Research study, 79% of Americans believe that there should be a maximum age limit for elected officials in Washington, D.C. The average age of the Senate in the USA is 64 years, but that also includes your favourite person, Bernie Sanders, who proves at the age of 82 that you can absolutely still be a firecracker for social justice, even if you could have retired many years ago. He actually turns 83 this year in September. Happy birthday, bud. Now, this is a very sensitive topic, okay, because ageism is actually an acceptable form of discrimination. Don't believe me? You watch the intro, right? Amongst all of the news clips, some of the most circulated moments are actually making a mockery out of people dealing with medical issues. This is done as opposed to center the conversation on the corruption which has allowed so much power to sit with so few people who have refused to let go of it. Ageism and ableism heavily overlap, and I've got an entire video talking about ableism which I made last year. But one of my patrons actually pointed this out when it comes to Joe Biden. So he's actually dealt with a stutter since childhood, and it's something which he's worked incredibly hard to overcome. Did you know that about 3 million Americans deal with a stutter? It doesn't impact your ability to work at all, yet it's the clips of him stuttering that actually got circulated the most as a point to prove that he's too old, whereas a stutter doesn't make you incompetent at work at all. Messaging that aging is the worst thing that someone can do has been prolific for so many years at this point. I mean, think about all of the adverts for all of the creams, lotions, potions, surgeries, everything that women especially are meant to do in order to stay worthy. Don't forget, ladies, your youth and beauty are the only worthwhile things about you. To policing what people wear, to saying that people are just over the hill.
The truth is, the greatest risk you face is sexually transmitted diseases.
Are these old people really having sex with each other?
Yeah, what did you think they were doing?
I don't, we're just talking about it.
Best way to
And the fact that so many ageist jokes are just prolific everywhere, especially when it comes to people forgetting stuff, which, sorry to break it to you, but that's one of the symptoms of long COVID, and it's something that I deal with on a daily basis. There are so many jokes about retirement homes that it's basically Abe Simpson's defining feature.
If you don't start making more sense, we're going to have to put you in a home. You already put me in a home. Then we'll put you in the crooked home we saw in 60 Minutes. I'll be good.
And the sad reality is that many older people actually face abuse, including at these places which are meant to be taking care of them. But does there come a time where we shouldn't have people who are meant to be in their retirement years dictating a future that they won't actually be a part of? Joe Biden's recently stepped down as potential nominee for the 2024 US election, which now makes Donald Trump the oldest presidential candidate in US history. But even before the infamous debate, people really wanted Joe Biden to step down because they were concerned about his age, and also, just the fact he keeps on sending bombs to keep a genocide actually ongoing, instead of, helping the people in his own country. Links to donate to support the people of Gaza are in the description box down below. My patrons were the ones that voted for this video, and they've got an extended, uncensored cut of this version, which also went up earlier than what you're seeing now. And if you are ever interested in joining my Patreon, that is all linked in the description box down below too. I also ask that you wait until the end of this video to comment, otherwise you're missing out on all of the tasty, tasty context.
You're not with it. I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what's it seems weird and scary to me. It'll happen to you.
Thank you once again to everyone who participated in my survey. There were 494 of you. I wish that we could have gotten to 500, but that's okay. If you ever do want to participate in my surveys, they are always in my community tab, and the best way to actually keep notified is to subscribe and also hit that bell notification. And if you follow me on Instagram, check me out on my stories, because I've been posting this link every single day for the past week, so there has been ample time, ample chance, ample notifications for you. So the rest of you, I am sorry, but I'm sure at the end of the video you will have a whole bunch of stuff that you can actually also add to the conversation. So let's look at your ages. 15% 13 to 18, 34% 19 to 24, 22.5% 25 to 29, 23% 30 to 39, 4% 40 to 49, 1% 50 to 59, 0.5% 60 to 69. I already know that my audience skews younger, but for this sort of survey it's very important to actually get people's ages, because that means that people are going off observation as opposed to experience. Like, there were only 3 people who participated who are over the age of 60, so it's really important to actually keep that in mind as we actually go through these survey results. One thing you actually raised a lot in the survey was about life expectancy. So let's have a look at like my top 5 demographics, because yes, I do know where you watch from. So in the USA it's 76.33, UK 80.7, Canada 82.6, Germany 80.9, Australia 83.3, Aotearoa 82.21. I'm including Aotearoa because I live here. Now this doesn't take into account all of the differences at play when it comes to issues related to gender, poverty, systemic racism, disability, and you know, the fact that people kind of get left to suffer in squalor because of BS capitalist policies, which people keep on putting into place and making things like houselessness illegal in some places, instead of actually protecting people and putting infrastructure in place. Looking at the USA from an outsider perspective, honestly, it's so weird. So this, along with the general notion that retirement age is about 65 in a lot of countries, that's where, you know, you start to get benefits. Some places you get them at 60, other places you get them a little bit higher up, but that's why I picked the age of up to 75 when it comes to the options that we're going to be seeing. Because, you know, I don't know about you, but I really do not want to be working until I die. I know it's probably going to be in reality, but I don't want that for anybody. People also kept on bringing up the issue of representation, so let's have a little look at populationpyramid.net so we can actually see how countries are faring. The ideal population pyramid is meant to be, you know, kind of MLM shaped, like a pyramid. Yeah, we're not MLM fans on this channel either. On these charts I've marked where 80, 65 and 18 are, because 18 to 65 are the typical taxpayer years. They pay for all the stuff that makes your country function, and also, you know, safety nets if they indeed do exist. Again, USA, I'm sorry, it doesn't seem like you really have many. And you'll also notice from all of these that people are indeed having less children, and yes, there are 2 more videos I really want to make about this. I mean, you'll have seen this one, but you'll need to subscribe to see those, because there's other things which I really think we should be talking about.
They have broad power to do what they like, and they have been doing what they like. They've had the 6-3 conservative supermajority for about 3 years, and in each of those 3 years, this court has overruled a major precedent.
Who runs the country? Grandpa. In the USA, both the president and the vice president have a lower age limit of 35. Hey, I would be eligible later on this year. If only I was born in the USA.
Then again, maybe not.
But in a number of other countries, that limit is actually set at 18. But there are other places with an age restriction of 35. But heck, in Italy, you have to be 50 to be able to be president of the republic. So lower age limits do indeed already exist, including for things like court judges. So what's the issue with having an upper age limit? There can't be any problems with that, right? So I asked you, do you believe that public office figures should have a maximum age limit for when they step down from their job? If so, what age would that be? 15% 75, 29% 70, 32% 65, 8% 60, 1% 55, 15% no, I don't think there should be a maximum age. I read through all of your responses, and there are a few categories that your answers actually fall into. 1, because they won't be around to experience the world that they're creating. 2 main reasons. 1, they need to be able to mentally handle a high-stress situation. Also, to me, most importantly, they need to live in the world long enough that their actions make. Too often we have people making decisions that impact us for decades who don't live through the consequences of their own actions. I believe that introducing or enforcing policies, if you likely will not see the long-term consequences, can open you up to a sort of thinking we in Germany like to call
Nach mir die Sinnflut,
or after me comes the flood. Politicians especially are at risk of not thinking past their term limit, and to couple that with the knowledge that after their stay in office they will just retire and live out their last few years without worry seems kind of dangerous to me, especially when thinking about financial politics, long-term investment and climate change. 2, because they don't represent the people any longer, they're a bit out of touch, especially if they're past typical retirement age. I mean, all I need to do is play this clip from the TikTok trial, right?
TikTok accessed the home Wi-Fi network Only if the user turns on the Wi-Fi. I'm sorry, I may not understand the...
So if I have
question.
TikTok app on my phone and my phone is on my home Wi-Fi network, does TikTok access that network?
It will have to access the network to get connections to the internet, if that's the question.
How can these people be making decisions about the future when they don't even understand Wi-Fi? Most public office figures earn enough during their careers to be able to retire. By the time they're 70, they've often lost touch with the average person and don't understand the reality of the world anymore. They make decisions about the future that they aren't going to see and do not consult with their constituents. The third reason is because they're more set in their ways and less likely to actually take progressive issues seriously. Frankly, most people that old are out of touch for what they're doing. They're being asked to make policies about things they've never heard of. As Biden and Trump, as well as most others in office, have proven, certain jobs can't afford to have people who are actively deteriorating. People also stop adapting and learning after a certain point. People with outdated views being in office makes policies that don't reflect the values of the nation. Not letting new people in office because positions are for life stunts progress. Around 60% of Americans support abortion, but the people in office have outdated beliefs that no longer reflect the values of the people. I actually fact-checked that in case any of you are interested. According to the Pew Research Center, currently 63% of Americans are actually in favour of abortion in all or most cases. And the fourth main reason was health concerns, stress and responsibility, and also expecting people to work after their retirement age. Retirement is an important, essential part of workers' rights. Having a head of state that doesn't acknowledge this is setting an example that we can all work past 70. Public office figures should have a maximum age limit. First, the older a candidate is, their physical and mental health is in further decline. People might not think about it, but being a president is an incredibly physical job. Travelling across the globe, packed schedules filled with meetings, a lot of public appearances and more. And as people enter their 70s and 80s, they aren't as sharp. This is dangerous because a job in public office carries a lot of responsibility, so an age limit is needed to filter out people who can't handle the rigours of the job. One of the most interesting things about Brezhnev's period of the USSR history is that it was called gerontocracy. People were getting older, didn't retire for the sake of power, adults couldn't go up in their careers, young adults couldn't even start their careers. One of the reasons why the period was named stagnation standstill among people in post-Soviet countries. It literally caused so many problems, even the ruse of alcoholism due to lack of opportunities for people.
Fluoride is used by the communists to control our minds.
No, it's not.
Fluoride can control minds? Like you can use it to make ladies do stuff?
How am I the one that is getting booted off of the city council?
So that brings me on to term limits, because that is the other thing which people kept on bringing up and saying how important it was for that to actually be in place. And you know what, actually, yesterday Biden announced that he was actually looking into that for an 18-year period for people. Now, I genuinely thought that term limits would be the best thing. I was like, oh yeah, I think maybe 8 years tops would be good for people. But apparently, term limits actually aren't that great a thing, especially if they're of a shorter term, because it means that people are just constantly trying to campaign for their next job. There are a lot of things. I'll link some more reading for you down below. Another issue is that when you're coming to the end of your term, you can kind of be like that last week of high school or something, where you can just like goof off and not actually do any work. So you're like, doesn't matter, I've already got my next job lined up. Why do I even care about these people? I mean, obviously we'd like all politicians to go into politics because they care about the people, but sadly that's not always the case. The real issues when it comes to politics is the consolidation of power and the fact that they keep on backing each other up. I feel like one of the reasons why so many people were actually pushing for term limits is because we have lawmakers stay in their positions even through ethical scandals, especially in the USA. This is very prevalent. 97% of incumbents get re-elected. In the last election cycle, 100% of Senate incumbents on the ballot got re-elected. Not a single sitting US senator was defeated last cycle, and so from a democracy standpoint and from an election standpoint, our elections are not very democratic. There are giant issues of money in politics and special interests and lobbying. If we could sort that sort of corruption out, then I don't think people would be pushing for term limits as much. But hey, we'll see what happens. I think that 18 years probably will actually do some good. Again, I'll have more linked for you down below about term limits. So what were the reasons against an age limit for people in public office? 1. Rather than age limits, it would be just to set quotas. We should even do this with other demographics, so that all ages are represented. We also know from political science research that term and age limits actually create cycles of lobbyism and allow for neglect when it comes to institutional knowledge. 2. Instead of age limits, there should be cognitive testing done to ensure the well-being of the person who is in that position of power, and also for the safety and security of the country that they're running or influencing. We remember when Trump actually did this test, right?
That again, and you go person, woman, man, camera TV.
And when you're actually thinking of these tests, I just want you to remember just how dehumanizing and demoralizing it is to have people be like, can you still function there, old Gramps? This is a really slippery slope down the ableism and discrimination path where we should actually be making accommodations for people to actually make workplaces more inclusive. The third reason, age isn't indicative of competence, ability, or quality of leadership. And the fourth main reason given was that age actually isn't the problem, it's more the fact that the people in power do not actually represent the people, and all of the many issues that go along with that, like I alluded to earlier. People in these positions of power are not acting in favour of the people, but instead of their mates or themselves, and fixing that should be the focus. I hard out agree with you. It feels like a band-aid solution to oust politicians who can't or won't act in the public's best interest. It would be great if we could simply figure that part out instead. Mate, if I had a solution for that, you would call me Elphaba the radical years. And once again, people kept on bringing up Bernie Sanders as a politician for the people, even though he is, like I said, 82. As one of my patrons very wisely said, when you're in a position of power, you do not want to give it up easily, clinging to it no matter the consequences for you or others. I know there's a belief that the older generations are unable to resonate with the issues of younger generations, which is in parts valid, but it could also be looked at from the optic of power. The longer you are in power, the less you are able to relate to or even care about people below you. You're getting farther away from regular people. As the saying goes, power corrupts infinitely.
My goodness! Wow! Anyone who believes that I'm getting out, please shove the bunting up your ass.
So, what about all jobs? Jobs actually do exist with an age limit on them, like judges here in Aotearoa, they have to retire at the age of 70. In the USA, air traffic controllers are required to retire at the age of 56, and the FAA won't hire anyone older than 31, because they want candidates to have at least a 25-year career path. This has genuinely caused so many issues in the USA, but you could also trace that all the way back to this fella right here, Reagan. But if you watch Legion Miller, you'll already be all across that, or you could just be watching some more news because you get caught up quick smart watching the Cody Shody. There are many other jobs with restrictions in place which could actually border on discrimination, such as air cabin crew. We don't have time to get into all of that injustice right now, so let's get back to the question I asked you. Do you believe that all jobs should have a maximum age limit for when they step down? If so, what age would that be? 8% 75, 11% 70, 11% 65, 3% 60, 1% 55, and 66% said no, there shouldn't be a maximum age limit. See how the choices get flipped? Can you guess the main reason that people gave? Because we live in an unaffordable capitalistic hellscape. Who'd have thought that would come up in one of my videos?
Florals for spring. Groundbreaking.
I voted no, but that's only under our current capitalist society. I'm Canadian. If the maximum age limit was accompanied by a livable pension, I'd be all for it. But currently, I think it would cause more problems than it would solve, since many older people who are still working are doing so out of necessity. This isn't really the case for elected officials, though. This opens the risk of a massive class issue. Many people, especially older women, have to work if they don't have adequate savings. Which brings me to the sad reality that yes, it is more expensive to be a woman. So in the UK, where I'm originally from, you have effectively the state pension that you can access from the age of 65, but that age is actually going to be increasing to 67 very soon. But millions of Britons already cannot afford to retire, and this is actually a global issue. Research from the Pensions Policy Institute in the UK has found that women retiring at 67, the new state pension age from 2026, will have saved an average of £69,000 for retirement, compared with £205,000 for men. And you can guess all of the reasons for it very quickly. Having a child, the impacts of that on your career, and the fact that you typically are the person to actually look after the child, do all of the child rearing, and also the fact that women's jobs tend to actually earn less money than men's jobs, and, you know, we still get paid less than men even if we have the same jobs as them. You add on to this the issues of race, lack of generational wealth, disability, sickness, and what if you haven't actually been able to get onto the property ladder? You're kind of screwed. And since most of you live there, let's have a look at the USA. The New School for Social Research, Teresa Ghilarducci, shows just 10% of Americans between the ages of 62 and 70 who are retired are financially stable. Most older Americans either are retired and live below the standard of living they had when they were working, or they can't afford to stop working. And a lot of the blame goes on the do-it-yourself pensions such as a 401k, which for an embarrassingly long time I thought that when you got an office job you got $401,000 actually put into your bank account for you to be able to invest for your retirement. Let's just not admit that it was only 2 years ago that I realised that that was actually false. The second reason against age limits for all jobs is because people want to stay connected, it prevents loneliness, and it actually does like a really good social function for humans. Ageism is appalling. Some people just want to keep busy and should, within reason, not be pushed out of jobs that they are capable of completing. My grandma is a professor and she is 87 and she has still been able to teach her course as well. The third reason is important to actually value the wealth of information, wisdom and knowledge that our elders have. As long as no one's life is at risk, I think it can be very important for older people to continue to work. Working intergenerationally can lead to huge benefits for both young people and old. But there is still this caveat which gets brought up all the time about the need for cognitive tests, the need for all sorts of tests to actually happen to make sure that people are working safely. Now, once again, we're veering into kind of tricky territory here.
But I'm a surgeon with over 40 years experience, and that counts for something. At least it should count for something.
Again, a competency and fitness test should be performed, but if Gramps has still got it, good for him. I think people should be allowed to work if they wish. Safety should be about assessment of individual ability rather than age alone. You're talking to someone that thinks that people should actually have to retake their driver's test every 10 years because seriously, I think that so many people forget the fact that they are driving around 2-ton coffins, or like how cars have gotten so much bigger, it must be like 6-ton coffins in some cases, and they don't even know how to use their indicator lights. So yeah, I'm here for retesting for all people, but when it comes to having like a specific age cutoff, I just want you to think through the scenario, right? How would you feel as someone who had just turned 60 to be told by probably a junior employee that you're effectively over the hill and people are just watching and waiting for your decline, judging you? Whilst there are some jobs where this is already a requirement, it isn't that way everywhere. I can't imagine this would feel anything other than dehumanizing and humiliating, especially as it's not a norm and it's so age dependent. It's not something that all employees have to do every 5 years. And even if it was the norm, I imagine the outcomes for older folk would be feeling lesser than and a huge sense of fear. I mean, imagine going from being a well-respected middle manager to then being demoted in the company to doing simpler work because people don't think that you're capable. One of you put this really well. So this is tricky. Ideally, people can work as long as they want to, but I think after 65, retirement age, that you should be held to the same standards as everyone else. And if your job is high stakes, or you could potentially put people at risk, then you should be evaluated to see if you're still fit for work. But this could be difficult to do without discrimination. I've known a 70-something who loved their job and was very capable but was pushed out by management for being too old, while at the same job I was working with a 60-something who couldn't even tell you what day it was, and very often put other people in danger, but they didn't fire her because they felt bad for her. See what I mean? You're really walking along a knife's edge here. So what about all of the reasons for having age limits? One is the most optimistic take, is that by actually having the age limit in place, it means that safety nets have to be there.
Silly rabbit.
My sweet summer child, I wish I had your optimism. Same as with public officials, we need to take care of our elders and not push them to continue working. Hot damn, people deserve to just not have to be working until the day they die. Not having an age limit opens up the opportunity to exploit older people as cheap labour, as in Japan, and creates a legal framework to do so. But I think some people can do their jobs even when older, and that varies per individual. This comment led me down a bit of a rabbit hole, so let's have a look at the situation in Japan. The Asahi Shimbun did a fantastic deep dive on this. A recent survey showed that 44.1% of single Japanese women aged 65 and older are living in poverty, much higher than the rate for single elderly men. Pensions are modelled with the thinking that men and women are married and men have been working for 40 years whilst the woman is at home as a housewife or, working part-time. So women's pensions are actually far lower, and if you didn't want to get married or live with a man, well, you're screwed by the system. The second reason for age limits is because it's important that younger people in organisations actually have space to be able to move up in their careers. I think older people should step down at a certain age to make way for others to take up their position, though I think this should come after they've taught what they've learnt to whomever will be filling their position after they retire. Unfortunately, the job market is saturated and that becomes worse when people refuse to step down. Also, when people are forced to work until the grave, it reinforces the mentality that people are only valuable when they're working. In this case, I'd also be pointing the finger at the company because they're the ones that are putting way more work on one person. Like, I've had roles where I've combined 3 persons' jobs into one. And the third reason given for having an age limit, yes, many old people are unwilling to go to the doctor for problems which they don't acknowledge, like memory loss. At work, this can lead to disastrous consequences such as prescribing the wrong medication or accidentally dropping heavy boxes. Not all jobs would have this risk, but it's hard to sort out which should and which shouldn't didn't have an age limit, so I just put all. Personally, I would say that most people don't want to admit when they're struggling because we've got internalized ableism. This isn't exclusive to older people. I'm in particular looking at men when it comes to this. When is the last time that a guy that you know, or if you're a guy, when was the last time you went for an annual checkup at the doctor? Sorry to use a stereotype here, but most of the guys I know actually rely on the women in their lives to book them these appointments. They do not do it for themselves, and they put it off for as long as possible.
Retirement cake, I guess. Call it what you like.
Have fun. Have fun. You took me off operations. You cut back on my hours. You made Terry, who I trained, my supervisor. Terry, who can barely figure out what year it is without his phone. So yes, I took the severance package.
I'm sorry you see it that way.
I was thinking about this as well. You know, the whole go enjoy your life now that you're retired sort of thing. Well, what's that going to mean to someone who has been told their entire life that their work is their most important thing? You know, our lives center around work. Work has genuinely become people's third space. And no matter how much we bemoan working and don't enjoy it, nothing brings people together faster than the shared hatred of something. There's this weird kind of community in there, like you cannot deny it. Though for me, you'd have to drag me kicking and screaming back into a regular workplace. I'm married to one of the weirdos that loves going to the office and working. I think older people cling to jobs they perhaps should not be doing for a multitude of reasons that may be related to age, because they're terrified of not being relevant or not being of use anymore. I'm afraid of my body failing me eventually, but I find it difficult to relate to boomers on the dying at my desk desire. I think for a generation that's been conditioned to value hard work, or at least the appearance of it, it's inconceivable to stop.
What is this class exactly?
And what the hell happened to me?
Well, it's called Look Great, Feel Good.
Currently, I'm neither.
Grace, how do your knees feel in those shoes? Oh, my knees are fine. My feet feel profound shame.
Gosh, this has been pretty grim, so why don't we focus on how we can actually keep people involved without having the need to work? I asked, what do you think would help ensure that as people age, they are included in society without the need to work due to unaffordability or lack of safety nets? I think a lot of people misunderstood the question because the resounding response was that we need to have UBI, Universal Basic Income, we need to have universal healthcare or free healthcare, or at least affordable healthcare. We need affordable housing. We need to have like all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, yes, but that's not actually making sure that we keep people involved in society without the need to work. That's the part which I want to focus on because that's the stuff that we can actually start to put in place now. Maybe we can even pester the government to help with that. Let's look at some of your recommendations. Daycare and retirement home overlap. Now, I don't have the time to dive into this, even though I did go down another rabbit hole. So this is actually based on intergenerational communities in Japan in the 1970s. This is called the Nagayama model, which I'll link more information for you down below. Now, these places, and I'm showing you all of this lovely stuff on screen right now, this has actually been shown to be incredibly beneficial not only for the children but also for the older adults as well. And before you ask, do not worry, the kids are always supervised by like a teacher person, okay? So we don't need to worry about that dark path that I think a lot of us were sadly going down the thought pattern of. Sadly, these places which have been created are not affordable though, but the daycare is separate from the retirement and supervised interaction happens daily, which benefits everyone. Mentoring came up a lot, as well as volunteering, which I think is where people's skills, wisdom and knowledge can absolutely be utilised, and not just by being part of homeowners association groups, which I'm sorry if you're part of one, but I really do not like them. Third spaces, the amount of people that kept on bringing up third spaces, yes, I big time agree with you. Social spaces or local events or meetings where the generational divide is not a barrier to discussions and interactions between generations.
Well, it's ages since I've been to a gig. Well, don't look that way. I'm down with the new music.
Hey, why not? The Stones can still keep rolling, why can't Giles?
Exactly. I think it's brave that you're here.
Well, thank you all. You've made me feel right at home.
Infrastructure that allows and encourages a more communal lifestyle would be the first two on my list, like apartment buildings or areas designed for neighbourhoods of all ages to interact and help each other out in daily life. I would really like to see fully accessible public transportation which is genuinely connected and effective. I want this to be free for older people, people with disabilities and for students. I know I'm asking a lot, but I also expect taxes to go up. As one of you said, accessibility options in society would also help anyone who need disability disability accommodations regardless of age, and disability rates go up the longer people live. Having accessible towns, villages, cities makes life so much better for everyone, especially if there's also a focus on creating accessible green spaces. Societies that encourage people to continue to learn as they age, something like free art classes for seniors, free courses or semesters or something for retired folk at community colleges. And there were a number of you bringing up community housing, which I'm also a big fan of, which I've talked about previously. There were some people saying it's the child's responsibility to look after the older family members, to which I would quickly reply, it wasn't the child's choice to be born. Now, intergenerational housing can indeed work for a number of people, but one thing which often gets overlooked is that a majority of this work, you know, because it is work to actually look after other people, falls on the women of the family, which is again unpaid work, and it's just an expectation. And so it's just another thing where I'd be like, okay, this works for some people. As I explained in this video, having kids with the expectation that they're the ones that are going to look after you is actually a really selfish reason to have kids and does not make sense to me.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years? When I'm 80. Yeah, sure. Yeah, whatever.
In order to get all of these things that we want, we need to have what? Higher taxes. I know, as soon as I bring that up, it's like, you'd fail as a politician. I know, especially since I'd be saying we need to close the tax loopholes, tax the rich properly, tax businesses properly, and I also want to tax the churches. I would be the most unpopular person around. The second thing we'd need is that all jobs get paid at minimum a livable wage, and that is a livable wage based on where they live. Yeah, actually, because I don't know about you, but it's more expensive to live somewhere like Auckland than it is to live in like a small town here in Aotearoa. You know how people in London get paid more? Kind of like that. And the third thing we need is we need workers to be given adequate resources. I'm on more specifically about the things actually needed for the care of older people. So, you know, think about doctors, nurses, carers, you know, these sorts of essential lines of work. I would say that we need more investment in training, we need more investment in their safety, we need more investment in terms of like just what they get paid, because I don't know how it is where you are, but it's incredibly hard to find a doctor here, and medical staff keep on going overseas because they get paid more there and because the working conditions are better. With an aging population, we need more of these people, and for them to be trained well, continue to be trained and constantly vetted as well, because like I said before, sadly there is elder abuse which does actually happen. And in order to actually create these nice communities that we want to be part of, you know, to be actually able to mingle intergenerationally and have all of this lovely stuff, we need people to be working less. So many of the previous options rely on community care, but that's genuinely impossible when people are struggling to get by themselves and have no time because they're working 2 or 3 jobs.
Thank you so much. You have got an amazing house and a really cool nightgown and seem to be super good at dating.
Yeah, so can we adopt you as our grandma?
Fine.
Okay, we love you, Grandma.
We love you, Grandma.
So where to from here? What can we actually do? First thing you can do is get involved in your local politics. I'm not on about like the big elections, which yes, I still want people to vote in. I'm on about like the smaller, more local stuff, because you can have a really big impact on your entire community this way. Vote for the people that you want to see represent your community and ask them the questions about the accessibility that you want to be increased. Ask them the questions about how they're actually caring for older people. Ask them these sorts of questions, because that's the stuff that actually helps to get them elected. And also talk to other people about politics. Yes, including your friends and family members, because hey, everything's political. I know that people keep on saying, oh, get away from the political stuff. Everything is political, my dude, okay? The second thing to do, which I know takes a bit more time, is to actually get involved in your local community. Supporting those around us, creating a nicer space to live for everyone, advocating for disability rights and old age support is really positive. Accommodating for people with different abilities isn't a burdensome thing to do. Local projects should focus on that as being part of their inclusiveness, and you can be part of helping to shape that. The third thing is to unionize, whether that's joining an existing union at your workplace or finding union options which could work for you and bring other people on that journey as well, because unions genuinely make the biggest difference to worker rights, and we need to have more people involved in unions. That's how we got so many workers' rights to begin with, because people were part of unions. Why do you think Republicans hate them? The fourth, and I would argue the biggest thing, which you can start doing right now, baby, is unlearning internalized ableism and ageism. This is a confronting one because I think a lot more of us struggle with this than we like to admit. Personally, I think that all of us struggle with this, and I'm even calling myself out here because we were watching My Name is Otto whilst I was painting my claws. I was watching this poor dude who had kind of lost his ability to be able to feed himself and stuff, and I was just thinking, gosh, that must feel awful to have other people care for you. Must feel really dehumanizing that way. I would feel like such a burden. That comes down to my own issues of never wanting to be a burden on someone. But yeah, and I'm just like, wow, why am I thinking that way? They've got genuinely a loving partner who is looking after them, and they also have a nice community that actually rallies around them. But again, it comes down to this internalized ageism and ableism, and that's coming from someone that's genuinely gone on such a big journey because of my long COVID. I have had to come to the harsh realization that I can't do half of what I used to do. You've got no idea how long I've been filming this video for because I can't even read and speak at the same time. We need to reframe aging as being a privilege rather than something that people have to dread and have to endure. Recognizing that everyone has inherent worth, whether or not they are able-bodied, will honestly open your heart more than you realize. And hiding the fact that you're struggling doesn't do anybody any good. Not yourself, not your co-workers, not your friends. It's not a weakness to not be this unachievable standard of quote normal forever, or even at all. I am a huge fan of accommodations for people, and we should actually normalize people needing accommodations to be able to do work or be part of society, because it's completely okay, because that means that a society is actually inclusive, and that's what we should have. Okay, this has been a genuinely huge video. Thank you for making it all the way to the end. If you did, please leave the owl emoji, because I feel like we've gotten a lot wiser from doing this sort of work. Again, thank you to everyone that participated in the survey. As I stress all the time, we all have different lived experiences, and I think it's really important to actually have these kind of uncomfortable conversations, because it really is an uncomfortable conversation. And an extra special thanks to my forest critters on Patreon. I truly appreciate it so much. Thank you very much for voting on this video. And a special big thank you to my Trash Panda enablers, Brigitte, Carrie Quate, Stella Sapiente, Tim Long, Tonya Banier, and Violet. Thank you all so very much. I will see you all again in a couple of weeks, and I think that we're going to do a more fun video, because I think that we kind of need it, right? Let's do that. I've got some ideas now. Put them again on my Patreon. Again, go check it out down below. We have fun there. And for the folks who really stuck around until the end, so my first ever job was a part-time job at a fabric store, and I worked exclusively with the silent generation and with boomers, and I was 16 years old. I've told you before about my incredible social anxiety. Like, it was ridiculous. I was such an anxious person, but these women were the ones that challenged me and encouraged me to come out of my shell. And let me tell you, you really do cut your teeth when you're working with older generations who know everything about sewing. Never drop a pair of fabric scissors, let me tell you that much. These were very tough, but also very sweet women, and let me tell you what, I will never forget that one day that I walked in wearing something that I'd made myself, and the look on their faces, because this is the first time that I'd ever impressed them, because, you know, I was still learning the ropes, I didn't know much, and then I walked in there wearing this, like, black and white number that I'd put together myself, and they were just gobsmacked, because they never thought of doing this with this kind of fabric, they never thought of, like, putting this sort of pattern together, and oh, that sort of feeling is one which I hope everyone gets to experience. And I know that part-time work isn't for everybody, and I know that the job market isn't great, and it's another reason why I'm such a big advocate for mentorships, for volunteering, for all of these other like cross-cultural, cross-generational opportunities for growth. Those sorts of experiences are the ones that shape us, not just for the ones that are learning, but for the ones that are actually doing the teaching as well. I really wanted to end this video on a cozy, hopeful note, because I know it's been very heavy to research. Ultimately, I think that we all know the real answer to the question which I asked at the title of the video: discard capitalism, embrace socialism. Who'd have thought I would come up with that on this channel? Wow. Hope you have a lovely rest of your day. I'll see you all next time. Bye.